I took a long 12-hour bus journey just to attend my dad's retirement celebration. I spent $300 on a personalized watch with his name engraved on it. As soon as I entered, my sister burst into laughter. "Look who finally decided to show up after hiding away," she said, mocking me. My mother snatched the box from my hands without even glancing at me, simply sneering, "At least you got him something that's not completely useless for once." My uncle shouted from across the room, "Lock up! Your wallets. The freeloader is back in town." Everyone laughed, thinking it was a joke, until I saw my old room. The door was gone, the mattress tossed into the driveway, and my belongings were scattered like garbage. My brother stepped out wearing my jacket and said, "We turned your room into a gym. You don't live here anymore." I looked at my dad, who just took a sip of his whiskey and remarked, "You ignore us for years and think you deserve a warm welcome." They then informed me that if I ever wanted to earn my place back in the house, I would need to pay $2,000 in back rent. I simply smiled and walked away. 2 weeks later, the family group chat went wild. Right away, I sensed something was off when I finally arrived at my parents' house after the bus ride. Here I was, standing there with a suitcase in one hand and the watch box in the other. And my mom had this expression that made it unclear whether she recognized me or if she was just annoyed that I showed up. I wasn't expecting a grand welcome, but it had been a while. You'd think I was a stranger selling something instead of her actual son, who had just traveled all day and spent his last bit of cash on a thoughtful gift. I knocked on the door, and immediately I heard voices inside as if they were already discussing me. No one said anything for a minute, and then my sister Nicole opened the door, blocking the entrance and grinning like she was on a reality show. She glanced at my bag and the watch box and said, "Look who finally crawled out of wherever he's been hiding." No greeting, just that. Everyone in the living room laughed like it was an open mic night at my expense. So, great start. I stepped inside, tried to stay calm, and searched for my dad. He was across the room with a small group of people, already a few drinks in. I caught his eye for a moment, he nodded, then returned to his drink. No one asked how my journey was, or even how I was doing. My mom came over, yanked the watch box out of my hand without looking at me, and loudly declared for everyone to hear, "At least you got him something that's not completely worthless for once." I felt like a kid who brought home a bad report card. I wanted to say something, but honestly, I just wanted to disappear. Uncle Kurt, who always seems to show up just to stir things up, yelled from the couch, "Lock up your purses! The freeloader's back!" More laughter followed. I tried to brush it off and said, "Hey, good to see you too." But no one was even paying attention. It felt like I was just background noise at my own dad's party. I was angry, but I didn't expect anything different. This was the norm. I was always the one getting the hand-me-downs, the one who never quite met their expectations. Meanwhile, my younger brother Jared, the golden child, was strolling around in my old jacket. When I asked about it, he just shrugged and said, "Oh, your room's a gym now. You don't live here anymore." As if I were supposed to find that funny. I went to check my old room out of habit, and there was no door. The mattress was on the driveway, old posters ripped down, and my belongings were tossed in garbage bags against the hallway wall. I spotted my old PS4 with tangled cords and a few missing books. Some boxes were half opened with clothes spilling out. It looked like someone had tried to go through them, but gave up. I could hear Jared talking behind me about needing more space for weights, and how there was no point in keeping junk from someone who didn't even visit anymore. At this point, I wasn't even hiding my anger. I grabbed my suitcase and headed back to the kitchen, where my mom was making a spectacle of unwrapping the watch in front of a couple of her friends. They were nodding in approval, but I could tell she was already annoyed that I didn't get something fancier, like a car. Eventually, I found my dad in the backyard by himself with a drink. I stood there waiting for him to say something, anything. Finally, he said, "So you ghost us for years and think you deserve a welcome parade?" I replied, "I just wanted to be here. I didn't expect a parade, just maybe not to be roasted by the whole family." He shrugged and said, "That's what happens when you disappear. You become the punchline." I tried to explain, but he didn't care. Then the issue of back rent came up. Jared, Nicole, my mom, and Uncle Kurt were all gathered around now, saying if I wanted to earn my place back, I would need to pay $2,000 for the time I wasn't contributing. I actually laughed, thinking it was a joke, but they were serious. My mom insisted it was only fair since everyone else pitched in, and I had just been coasting. Jared suggested I should try being part of the family for once, so I just stared at them. I knew they were waiting for me to explode, but I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. Instead, I picked up my bag and started walking through the living room. Nicole tried to block my path, but I pushed past her without apologizing and headed outside. I heard Uncle Kurt say something about good riddance, and my mom slammed the door harder than necessary. I stood outside for a moment, debating whether to leave the watch on the porch or take it and sell it for bus fare. Not that I could get much for it now. I left it behind and started walking, not even checking my phone for directions. I just needed to get away. I was furious. But more than that, I was exhausted from being the family scapegoat. They claimed I ghosted them, but they never reached out unless they wanted something. The last time I tried to come home, they made a big deal about me being late for dinner, treating me like I was still a kid. I ended up crashing at a friend's place that night, sleeping on his couch without saying much. The next morning, I checked my phone and saw 6 missed calls from various family members, none of them offering an apology, just the same old jokes, digs, reminders that I didn't really belong. But here's the thing, I'm done letting them off the hook. I don't care if they think I'm the black sheep. I've spent too long being the punchline, the one who always pays for everything in the end. I'm not interested in playing along anymore. So that's where I left it. Suitcase by the door, watch on the porch, family inside laughing about how I finally showed up. I walked away, but I'm not letting it go this time. What happens next? Let's just say if they want to call me a moocher, I'll show them what that really looks like. Update 1. This is where things shifted from typical family drama to something else entirely. Honestly, I'm still a bit shocked at how quickly my mindset changed from trying to keep the peace to saying, forget it, I'm done being nice. After the scene at my parents' house, I didn't go home right away. I crashed at my friend's apartment, grateful to Jasper for having beer and a couch with minimal dog hair, and tried to unwind. I slept poorly and woke up at 6 a.m. I can't say I was surprised to find no texts from anyone actually apologizing. Just spam in the group chat, laughing emojis, and Jared sending a photo of my old mattress in the driveway with the caption, "Free to a good home." Hilarious. The next morning, I packed up what was left of my things. As I dragged my battered suitcase out of my parents' driveway, I noticed a box on top of the trash bins. It was half open with paperwork spilling out, old envelopes, receipts, nothing I wanted to deal with. But I spotted a folder with my name scribbled on it, so I grabbed it. Once I got back to my place, I dumped everything on the floor and started going through it, mostly to distract myself from the urge to send a fiery text to the family group chat. There were tax documents, warranty cards, and a bunch of old school photos from when I had braces. Then I found something unexpected, a copy of that loan agreement from 10 years ago, notarized. My signature, my dad's signature. I stared at it, thinking, is this for real? Did they really just stash it away with all this old junk? If you've never had your family act like you didn't do something significant for them, it's hard to explain how strange it feels. Like you're the villain in their story for leaving, but they keep the things you provided as if they're theirs. Quick recap for anyone new. 10 years ago, my dad's business was struggling. I had a small inheritance of $40,000 from my grandmother, and everyone guilted me into investing in the family business. They created a real agreement, notarized everything, and sent me checks for interest occasionally, but then stopped. No one ever mentioned it again. I brought it up during holidays, but it was always brushed aside, with Dad saying, "Oh, we'll sort it out. I'll pay you back." Then they'd change the subject. After the party debacle, I sat down and did the math. If I'd put that money into any decent index fund, I would have doubled it by now. Instead, my family treated me like a beggar in my own home. I texted Jared about the loan, keeping it casual, just asking, "Hey, remember the loan I gave? Dad?" He left me on read. A few hours later, Nicole texted me with the classic, "Oh my God, you're still on about that. It was ages ago. Let it go." No help there. I called my mom to see if she would pretend to forget too. When she picked up, she said, "We're busy, Travis. Can you call later?" I told her I wanted to discuss the money I loaned Dad. She fell silent, then said, "You need to grow up. This is embarrassing." So, that's how they want to play it. At that point, I got angry. Not in a dramatic way, but cold and focused. I Googled compound interest calculators and started adding it up. I called a lawyer, not someone connected to the family, just a local guy whose number I found online. I'm not some genius with a legal team. I just looked up reviews and chose someone competent. I sent the lawyer the paperwork, the agreement, my emails, everything. He called me back after a day and said, "Yeah, this is legit. And with interest, it comes to about $78,000 now." I was stunned. I told him I wanted to handle this properly, to send a demand letter and make it certified. He asked if I wanted to talk to them first, and I replied, "No, I'm done talking." Here's where it gets interesting. The lawyer drafted a letter on official letterhead detailing the situation. It stated they had 60 days to repay the principal plus interest, or he would file a lien on my dad's business assets. I paid the retainer and signed a few forms, and just like that, it was out of my hands. The next day, I received a text from Jared saying I was acting like a child and shouldn't air family matters outside the family. I ignored it. Then Nicole tried to call, leaving a voicemail of her sighing for 30 seconds before hanging up. My mom didn't call at all, which was typical. The strangest thing was how quiet everything became. The group chat slowed down. No more jokes or memes about me being homeless or too broke. I guess they thought I was bluffing or didn't expect me to follow through. Meanwhile, I was living my life, scrolling through Reddit and Twitter, waiting to see what would happen next. I started reflecting on all the times I helped Jared out of tough spots or gave Nicole late-night rides. I never held it over them, but the second I wanted basic respect, I got nothing. I knew this was the right move, but I felt a bit strange about involving lawyers. I'm not the type to sue my own family, but when you call me a moocher and treat me poorly, I don't owe you silence. So that's where I stand. 60 days on the clock, letter sent. Suddenly, my phone was a lot quieter. I don't know exactly what they'll do next, but I know one thing for sure. They wanted to treat me like an outsider. Fine, I'm leaning into it. The next part is where things start to get intense, and honestly, I'm kind of looking forward to it. Update 2. I thought the lawyer's letter would stir some reactions, but I totally underestimated how frantic my family would become. Not even a full day after the letter arrived, my phone was lighting up like I'd confessed to a crime on social media. It wasn't just texts, 3 missed calls from my mom before 10 a.m., Jared calling back to back, and Nicole bombarding. The group chat with all caps and skull emojis, as if trying to curse me through the screen. The odd part was how quiet it had been for about a week after I sent the letter. I was out grabbing coffee when I realized I hadn't received any new family notifications. It almost felt like they were going to ghost me. Not that I cared, but then everything erupted at once. If you've ever seen a group chat go from calm to chaos in under 5 minutes, you know the feeling. Nicole's first message was just a screenshot of the lawyer's letter. They actually sent her a picture of it. Why, I have no idea, accompanied by a flurry of question marks. Then she followed up with, "What did you do? Dad's freaking out. Are you happy now?" Mom chimed in, skipping text altogether. Instead, she left me a long voicemail, 2 straight minutes of her crying and calling me heartless, pleading for me to reconsider. Uncle Kurt jumped in next, sending a lengthy rant about how I was draining my father's finances, how I should be ashamed, and that family doesn't sue family. I could imagine him in that tacky chair in their den, waving his beer around, barely, holding it together. Then there was Jared, sending short messages that said I was scum and dead to them, threatening to come over and confront me. It was wild how quickly they flipped the narrative. When they called me a moocher and made me pay rent for a childhood bed, that was just tough love. But the moment I wanted my money back, suddenly I was the one ruining the family. For a moment, I wondered if I had pushed too hard. Not out of guilt, just out of disbelief that I had really ignited this chaos. But then, I remembered how they had made it clear I was expendable. If I'm going to be the villain, fine. I'll embrace that role. The situation escalated. Mom started texting late at night, asking if I had talked to Dad. She claimed he hadn't slept, worrying about the business. I knew what that implied. He was probably anxious about a sale he had been boasting about for months. Then, Uncle Kurt tried to get me to settle for a couple grand, offering $2,000 to call it even, the exact amount they tried to squeeze out of me in back rent. I laughed at that one and didn't even respond. It wasn't just them. I also received a message from one of Dad's old work buddies, someone I barely knew, suggesting I drop the matter for everyone's sake. I started checking in with a friend to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. He told me, "Dude, your family is gaslighting you. Don't back down." He was right. I kept all the receipts, all the messages, not because I needed ammunition, but because I knew how slippery they could become when money was involved. Jared tried to call again, sounding almost normal this time, asking if we could just talk. I told him, "If you want to talk, pay the money." He hung up. Then came the guilt trip. Nicole sent me a photo of Dad, looking worn down, sitting at the kitchen table with his head in his hands. No context, just that. I didn't reply. By the end of the week, I had around 20 voice notes, each one either someone crying, yelling, or trying to negotiate. I saved them all, just in case. My lawyer checked in and said they received responses from their side. Just a bunch of angry calls, no actual counteroffer or payment. He said we were in a waiting game now. They were scrambling. The business wasn't as solid as they had claimed. I started getting calls from unknown numbers, probably friends of friends, all urging me to be the bigger person. I refused to budge. They wanted to treat me like a nobody. Fine, I'm a nobody owed $78,000 and every ounce of respect they never gave me. The best part? For the first time in years, I felt in control. I wasn't waiting for permission to be part of the family. I wasn't asking for scraps. I wasn't the clown for their entertainment. If they wanted to act like this was the end of the world, so be it. Let them sweat. The clock was ticking down, and I was simply observing, waiting to see which one of them would crack first. If you told me last year that I'd be the one holding the detonator, I'd have laughed. But here we are. I'll update when things settle down, or if it gets even messier. Something tells me this isn't the climax yet. Final update. I never thought I'd see the day when the same family members who mocked me for being the black sheep would be bombarding my phone like it was their lifeline. But here we are. And it's not as satisfying as I imagined when I was younger, hoping they would finally recognize their mistakes. It's messier, louder, and way more desperate than I ever envisioned. It started with the missed calls. Like not just a few, but several every hour. Nicole, Jared, my mom, even Kurt, who usually avoids phone calls. My phone buzzed so much that I started leaving it face down and silencing it. I'd check the notifications later. Voicemails ranged from mumbling to yelling, and some even had people fighting in the background. My mom left numerous voice notes, each different. Some pleading, some crying, some snapping at me to stop being so cold. The turning point came when a neighbor back home, not even someone I was close to, reached out. He mentioned there was a scene in the front yard and asked if everything was all right. I simply replied, "Yeah, family stuff. Thanks for checking." Shortly afterward, I received a video. Nicole must have sent it to someone else, and it circulated. My dad, shirtless in broad daylight, was in the front yard tossing furniture onto the grass. He was dragging a recliner out, yelling at my mom while neighbors watched and kids on scooters stopped to gawk. My mom just sat on the lawn, not even trying to help, hands on her face, sobbing loudly. At one point, Nicole tried to stop Dad from throwing a table into the street and got shoved aside. Not hard enough to hurt her, but enough for her to start screaming back. Kurt showed up and attempted to intervene, almost taking a swing at Dad, but stopping himself. People across the street were watching, some filming, but no one called for help because, let's be honest, this family had been a circus for years. The group chat exploded. It was all caps, threats, guilt, the same cycle. Jared said if I didn't respond, he'd come over and force me to talk. I blocked his number for a bit. Nicole left a voice note, her voice quivering as she pleaded for me to stop, claiming I was destroying everything. She insisted that Dad's retirement deal was falling apart, and they needed time, asking me to reconsider. Mom texted, "Please, we need you. Please pick up. We'll do anything." I didn't respond. No calls, no messages. I just sent everything to my lawyer and told him to keep me updated. I know it sounds harsh, but after years of being the family's emotional punching bag, I don't owe them anything. Real consequences came quickly. Dad's business partner, I heard from a mutual friend, freaked out when he saw the lien threat and started pulling out of a deal. The retirement sale stalled. Suddenly, that supposedly successful business wasn't looking so solid anymore, and my loan became a significant roadblock. The best part? The same people who told me to pay back rent, who tossed my belongings out like trash, who laughed at me, were now desperate. They tried to twist the narrative, claiming I was selfish and ruining my father, that I was acting like a stranger, but it was all just noise. I received messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Family, friends, maybe even someone from Dad's bowling league, all pleading with me to let it go, saying it was family. I didn't even bother replying. The only thing that almost affected me was seeing my mom collapse on the grass. But then, I remembered every time she took someone else's side or made snide comments for the sake of her friend's amusement. I recalled the look on Jared's face when he said I didn't live there anymore, and how they all circled around to demand I pay $2,000 in back rent just to be allowed in the house. I let them sweat it out. 60 days passed, no payment, no apology, no attempt to actually talk like adults, just more threats and guilt. My lawyer filed the lien, and the group chat went silent for a day before erupting again. But I no longer cared. I muted the entire thing. I know some people are thinking, wow, that's cold. Or, you should have just walked away. Family is family. But when you've spent your whole life being a doormat, you eventually realize you don't have to take it. You can stand up for yourself. You can make them feel a fraction of what they put you through. I don't know what's next. Maybe they'll lose the business or finally get their act together. Maybe they'll blame me forever. I'm not waiting to find out. For the first time, I feel like I've stood up for myself. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but I did it. So for anyone else who's tired of being the family punchline, sometimes you just have to be the villain in their story. At least this time, I get to write the ending.